Very good morning, all, and welcome to today's session. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. People are joining with us. We are waiting for few more people to join. The webinar is going to start very shortly. Kindly hold on for few minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
Once again, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. I am Niveta from Relativity Management Solutions India Private Limited. First of all, we would like to inform that due to unavoidable situation, presenter Mrs. Padmajyoti can't able to handle the session today. So Mr. Akash is going to handle the session. He is the director at Relativity. Mr. Akash, he is a successful young entrepreneur, speaker, innovator, and payroll expert who helps business leaders. He is the director at Relativity and he is well known as a financial specialist for over 13 years now. He is also frequent guest at event hosted by NHRD, NIPM, TIE chapter, IIHR related to human resource, finance, taxation, shared service, and entrepreneurship. He has conducted more than 250 plus sessions offline and online, as well as Relativity regular webinar every month. He is the host of Relativity Knowledge Series, a young YouTube channel to help HR professional be better, and the lead author of Relativity blog. It's time to start our webinar. Let's start. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for the quick and brief introduction. And good morning, all of you. It is wonderful to see you on this Wednesday morning on the eve of this webinar. What is very important is when we start the financial year, what are the budget changes is something that is very much talked about. Sometimes at least in certain large organizations, the planning for the budget changes, the configuration of the tool, the reconfiguration of processes, all of it starts a little earlier itself. But there is a very important difference, right? What is presented in the budget or proposed in the budget versus what is passed in the budget. So, with that context, we bring to you this webinar, which is the first webinar for this financial year. But I believe it is 125th or 26th webinar for Relativity. We bring to you this impact of budget, impact of 22 23 24 budget changes on specifically on payrolls. So there are a lot of budget changes. We have changes in with TDS, we have changes with respect to withholding taxes, we have changes with respect to laws governing business and profession, 44AD, 44ADA. But right now, for the context of this, for the content of this webinar, let's focus purely on payroll, because the change is quite significant, and it requires us to have a deep understanding of what this change is and how it is going to impact our stakeholders. So typically, if you look at who the stakeholders are, ladies and gentlemen, you will look at your employees who are your customers. So they are one of the biggest stakeholders. Then we also have the organization itself, the senior management, the organization, who is another important stakeholder, because this organization is a legal entity, and any compliance, any letter of the law has to be followed on behalf of this organization. And another stakeholder is the income tax department itself, right? Because they receive data from us, we receive data from them. We provide data to them in terms of TDS filings, in terms of data for Form 16, in terms of Annexure 2, and so on and so forth. But so all of these three are very important stakeholders in these changes which happen on account of budget. So today, what we are quickly going to run through are what are these changes, how are they impacting payroll and payroll operations, and the second part would be Q&A session. I'll try to give a lot more time for Q&A session, so that people who are here can obviously ask questions and get your specific questions answered by all of us. So we have my extended team also on the webinar. Radha is there, and then many others from Relativity, a few others from Relativity are there, who are also experts with respect to taxation. So I'm sure we are going to have a great deal of information exchange today. With that quick intro, let me jump right into the topic. So I'm going to use this format: what has changed and what is the impact on payroll and payroll. So what is the impact on payroll is a topic, and how it impacts the payroll or HR teams, is a subtopic in itself. So what has changed? You know that from 21-22 onwards, the new tax regime has been promoted by the income tax department quite significantly. And initially, it was not very attractive. There were a lot of ifs and buts, and even the tax structure was not that attractive for many people to take it. But now, what they have done with this recent change, which was proposed in financial year 23-24, budget for 23-24, they have undertaken significant changes, and they have rationalized taxes to just 4 slabs. So you have obviously the default 0%, then you have the 5%, then you have the 10%, you have the 15, you have the 20, and you have the 30%. So there is absolutely no 25% at all, which was there earlier. So it's just now 4 tax slabs: 5, 10, 15, 20, and 30%, which is going to be there. And certain rebates have also been provided. Like, for example, rebate under 87A, which was there for the old tax regime, has now been extended to new tax regime, which actually means that any income up to 7 lakhs under the new tax regime is non-taxable. So that is what we've mentioned as item number 1. Employees may pay 0 tax if their income is less than or equal to 7,50,000, thereby reducing your taxable employee headcount. See, why we have mentioned 7,50,000 is because there is 7 lakhs, and then there is this benefit of standard deduction, which earlier was not available for new tax regime optees, but now has been made available for new tax regime optees. Though the number, which is the limit of standard deduction, has not changed, the 50,000 has been extended from the old tax regime to the new tax regime optees as well. So in totality, if you see those employees who earn up to 7,50,000 and opt for new tax regime, there is absolutely no tax that they have to pay. Now, this is, compare this to the old tax regime. In old tax regime, the value is 5,50,000. So anybody who's earning more than 5,50,000 will have to pay certain taxes, considering that their deductions and exemptions are not accounted for. So this is one big item that it will lead to a reduced taxable employee headcount. And why is this important? Is because when you have reduced the taxable employee headcount, there are so many other things that fall. I mean that have to follow, right? Are you going to give Form 16 to such employees for whom there is no tax being deducted? Because certain organizations, though at Relativity we have always mentioned that you give Form 16 irrespective of their tax status, irrespective of whether they are taxable or not, irrespective of whether TDS is being deducted or not. Form 16 now has become a right of an employee for many purposes. First and foremost being financial prudence. So, but still we see a general trend in the industry is that Form 16 is only issued to those who are taxable or for whom TDS has happened. So here, when the headcount itself reduces, taxable employee headcount reduces, then you will have to ask yourself or your auditors or your stakeholders, do you want to provide Form 16 to them or not? Do you want them to declare investment proofs at the beginning of the year? Do you want them to submit investment? Obviously, there is no need for them to submit investment proofs at the end of the year because that's going to be redundant in case they have opted for new tax regime. The second thing that may actually happen is that for certain category of employees, depending on their exemptions and their deductions that they take advantage of, the tax outgo may actually reduce when compared to the old tax regime. So this comparison is what is very important, and it impacts payrolls and payroll and HR teams. The reason why I'm saying that this comparison is important is because you have to choose the tax regime now based on which the TDS deduction is going to happen. And I've also discussed that in the next slide. So I will leave a lot more discussion there. But typically, there is a widespread media coverage saying that new tax regime there will be reduced tax outgo. So they are using the word will, which is actually not the case. There may be is what is the case. And the beautiful thing for the salaried class is that you can opt for any tax regime in any year. So let's say, for example, you can opt for new tax regime this year. Next year, you feel old tax regime is beneficial. The employees can go back to old tax regime. The subsequent year, if they feel new tax regime is beneficial, they can actually come back to new tax regime. So this option, as long as there is no business income or professional income, income tax department has given this option. So every year, an individual has to, come to the portal that is being provided by the company. They have to key in the numbers or the numbers have to be auto-populated, and they will have to see which tax regime gives them optimal benefit. Now, as much as we would like to say that this is, the responsibility of the individual or the employees, it is absolutely up to the employees to decide how they want this to happen, and so on and so forth. Please be mindful of the fact that some questions will definitely come up from the employees. Like they may ask you as HR, payroll, or finance team members whether they should, opt a new tax regime or whether they should opt for old tax regime. The answer for which is not very straightforward. That is what I have. I'm there to say. The answer for that has to be calculated and arrived appropriately, and that is where the necessity of a system comes into place. System meaning a payroll software or a HRMS software, which will help you with this kind of comparison is quite vitally important. Now, if you can see, I was talking to you about these tax slabs, right? So as you can see, until the 31st of March 2023, you can see that the 5% started from 2.5 lakhs and it existed until 5 lakh rupees. But now with this revised tax slabs, the 5% is starting only from 3 lakhs and it exists until 6 lakhs. So there is a increase there. Earlier 5 to 6 lakhs was taxed at 10%. Now it is going to be taxed at 5%. There is no change for 6 to 7.5 lakhs. In both the regimes, it is going to be taxed at 10%. For 7.5 to 9 lakhs, earlier was taxed at 15%, now it is going to be taxed at 10%. The same way, 10 to 12 lakhs earlier was taxed at 20%, but now it is going to be taxed at 15%. And finally, 12.5 to 15 lakhs earlier was taxed at 25%, but now will be taxed at 20%. Right? So as you can see, there is no 25% at all. So there have been the tax slabs have been rationalized, the tax rates have been rationalized. So we now have only five tax rates: 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, and 30%. And then there are other items in terms of surcharge that is there for the old tax regime as well as for the new tax regime. There is only a small difference in surcharge for the new tax regime, where if you opt for new tax regime, even above 5 crores, the surcharge is limited to 25%, as against 37% in the old tax regime. But then, is it fair to say that for everyone, it is not fair to say a blanket statement that new tax regime is beneficial for everyone? So it's absolutely not at all fair to say that it is beneficial, that a new tax regime is beneficial. I've just got a message from one of my team members that there are about quite a few number of people watching this webinar on LinkedIn. Hi there, hi all the people watching this webinar on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Good morning to all of you. Thank you very much for joining the webinar, and I hope you're having a good time. One thing that I want to tell all of you participating in LinkedIn as well as in YouTube is that you can please ask your questions in the chat box there. That questions will get relayed here, so don't worry at all. I will get we have an interface. One of my team members is there on LinkedIn, so they will take your questions and relate here. So no worries at all. It for sure is going to be an interactive session. Now, what I was let me come back. What I was telling is, it is incorrect to say a blanket statement that new tax regime is beneficial or old tax regime is beneficial. It is incorrect to say that. So we will have to look at the calculations. You will have to ask your employees to actually stimulate and see which tax regime has a lower tax rate for them. Like, for example, I will show you, everybody goes to Google. I was looking at Google statistics, and Google statistics showed that this term is trending. Which is better, old tax regime or new tax regime? It is now trending in India. That is because obviously, there are people who are wanting to go and see which is better. Now, I also try to Google and see what is the general opinion, and everybody is talking so highly about the new tax regime. Of course, it is a great option, but this is one example, what you can see on the screen, where old tax regime is beneficial than new tax regime. So the salary is 20 lakhs, right? It's the same 20 lakhs. You have HRA exemption, you have LTA exemption, which is not available in the new tax regime, but it is available in the old tax regime. So let's say, as per the example that you can see on the screen, 4 lakhs goes towards HRA exemption and 1 lakh goes towards LTA exemption. Then you have the standard deduction, which is there for both, right? You have them for the old tax regime as well as for the new tax regime. Now, income from salary as per the old tax regime is 14.5 lakhs, but as per the new tax regime is 19.5 lakhs. Now, let's say there is a self-occupied property, and you are claiming housing loan interest, which is allowable in the old tax regime, but not allowable in the new tax regime. So that's about another 2 lakhs of deduction. And then you have your normal ATC and ATD, which if you've been working for the last, let's say, 5 years, 6 years and above, this by default you will have, because from the last 5 years, slowly you would have built this ATC exemption. You would have got few policies, you would have done ELSS investments, blah blah blah. So the ATC deduction would already be there. The ATD, mediclaim or medical insurance also would already be there. So your taxable income in the old tax regime is 10,75,000, for which the tax liability is 1,40,400. But whereas as per the new tax regime, it is 19.5 lakhs, predominantly because there is no LTA, there is no HRA, there is no ATC, there is no ATD exemptions available. And even with the revised tax slabs, right? We saw that the new tax regime tax slabs are different. Like, for example, in the old tax regime, the 20% slab is only applicable until 12 lakh, 10 lakhs, and any income in excess of 10 lakhs is taxed at 30%. Whereas in the new tax regime, any income in excess of 15 lakhs is only taxed at 30%. Despite all of this, you can see that the tax liability is significantly lower in the old tax regime than in the new tax regime, right? And that is why I have to mention the fact that it is not a general statement for people to make. It has to be assessed properly. It has to be calculated properly by the employee themselves, and they have to then tell the employer that yes, I want to opt for old tax regime or I want to opt for new tax regime, whatever it is. They will have to tell the employee. So what do you think about this, old versus new tax regime? Why don't you use the chat box and tell me how many of you were of the opinion until now that blanket new tax regime is better? How many of you were of that opinion that blanket new tax regime is better? Just put it in the chat box if you were, or did you still feel that no, there is some, okay, you do not agree that the new tax regime is better. Wonderful. Gopal Krishna, thank you for that. What about others? Was there, because of all this, hype and information overload in the media, which is predominantly focusing on the aspects of new tax regime, it has become a general statement that new tax regime is better. What do you guys think? Okay, so there are quite a few answers that are coming in. Blanket statement: new tax regime is better till 7.5 lakh CTC. Agreed, agreed, Sanja. Agreed. Yes. Huber says old is better. Okay, so that's another choice. For remaining, we need to test. Yes, absolutely. And even Sanja, even in this 7.5 lakh CTC, right? An old tax regime could also work. I'm not saying it may be beneficial, but could also work, because until 5.5 lakhs in both the regimes there is no tax, right? And let's say the employee has a housing loan and he's paying 2 lakhs of interest, 2 lakhs or more of interest, and it's self-occupied. So the that housing loan benefit can be taken in the old tax regime, making both the tax regimes net zero. So that's one example I thought we should share. Gopal Krishna says old is better. Give the option, give option to opt for exemption. Yes, absolutely. So there are a lot of exemptions that are available in old tax regime. It's not only about LTA and HRA, right? That I'm talking about. There are a lot of other exemptions which are applicable in old tax regime, which is not applicable in the new tax regime. That's always there. Karthik says, I was thinking the new tax regime was better. I think you should think that you have to now find out which is better, right? It's not that the new tax regime is bad. Definitely not. See, I will definitely say where the new tax regime is better. You have these, Y2K kids, kids just out of college who are joining, work, who believe in a higher take home right now than saving it, right? So as per the new tax regime, they don't have to make any investments at all. For them, because it syncs with their thought process, the new tax regime is better, right? So even if they don't save anything, up to 10 lakhs, up to 11 lakhs, up to 12 lakhs, I think up to 15 lakhs something, the new tax regime is absolutely giving them a lot more benefits. Old tax regime is better than new. Okay, old tax regime is better for CTC above 15 lakhs. It has to be beneath. It has to be evaluated, because one stark difference I'll tell you. If the income is above 5 crores, okay, old tax regime imposes a surcharge of 37% if the income is above 5 crores. Whereas under the new tax regime, above 2 crores or even above 5 crores, the surcharge is limited to 25%. Right? So even there you will have to do a calculation and find out which is better. Depends on income, comparison has to be made. Fantastic, Shruti, yes, absolutely fine. Old is better. Many of them say old is better. Need clarification on standard deduction for new tax regime. Is there any ceiling like old limit up to 5 lakhs? We are seeing that already. Unless we cannot say which is better. Yes, that is absolutely. It depends on salary calculations. Fantastic. Okay. So I think you know all of you have got the crux of it. Radha is also responding to a few of the questions. So I will let her continue to respond while we go to the next very important point of this particular webinar. Now, so here this is another white elephant in the room, which says default tax regime has now changed from new to old. See, earlier, until last year, the default tax regime was actually the old tax regime. And if the employee wanted to opt for new tax regime, they would make such a declaration to the employer, and appropriately the employer would record the declaration and tax would be calculated. Right? Now, call it a strategy to promote a new tax regime. The income tax department has mandated not only at the employer's end, what they say is even with your income tax records, we are now going to consider that you default have chosen new tax regime. So how can you tell the employer that you want an old tax regime? Your employer will give you some facility. Typically there is a payroll employee self-service tool where you are going to go and change from new to old. What is the facility that the income tax department would give you to tell them that you are choosing old and not the new tax regime? Is the only facility that they are giving is while filing our income tax returns, right? And if we do not file our income tax returns on time, the department would have already defaulted us to new tax regime and will calculate tax as per new tax regime only if we do not file our income tax returns on time. Now you may be asking, Akash, you said this is a forum for HR professionals. Why are you bringing personal income tax? I'm not bringing personal income tax filing here. What I'm trying to tell you are what are the two options, because you being HR professionals, definitely this question is going to come out to you while you're addressing employee queries or while you're addressing clarifications from employees. So there are only two places of how an employee can choose the tax regime. One at the employer's end, or another is while they file their income tax returns. There is no other place. And even when they are choosing from the employer's end, the income tax department has said that the choice can be made once, right? But for all practical reasons, many times the employer gives the option to move within the financial year, but typically still it is one. So what is the impact? Tax is to be calculated on the new tax regime if employee does not choose any tax regime. So we know this, right? By default, we have to calculate it only on the new tax regime. Until now, it was by default on old tax regime. So think like this. Even if the employee has made declarations, but not chosen the tax regime, they have made declaration that they have HRA. They have made declaration that there is ATC, ATD, They have made declaration that they are going to claim LTA this year. There is food coupons, and all of these are there, but they have missed to communicate one crucial thing, that they are willingly opting for new tax regime. If they miss this, then none of these declarations matter, because the tax is going to be calculated on the new tax regime. So what this will do is it will bring out a lot of dissatisfaction, because employees are employees, right? You definitely understand that they are ignorant, they are working hard for the organization, or so all of us claim. And when we do that, there is a possibility that we miss. So one of the suggestions that I've heard in the industry is integrating both the declaration as well as the tax regime options, right? So if you are declaring, so whoever has opted by default, nobody has the option to declare. But if you are declaring, it means that you are opting for the old tax regime, and you are consciously giving that choice. Even where there are there are lack of systems, this particular choice has to be recorded either physically, by paper, or some way or the other. You can go one step further and say and confirm with the employees that, hey, these are the deductions, I mean, these are the exemptions. You have made tax declaration, investment declarations, but your tax regime is new tax regime. Is this really correct? So these are certain ways of how you can reduce employee queries, you can improve employee experience by educating them. Tax is to be calculated on old tax regime only if the employee has actively opted for it. Yes. Communicate and educate extensively this change to all employees. So I think what everybody is going to do is, they're just going to go to Google, as we have seen, and already this is a trending term on Google, and they're going to say, oh yeah, everything looks nice, it's new tax regime, let me take it. But then that may not be the case. Sometimes new tax regime is not practically a good choice. This has to be communicated to your employees, because at the end of the day, you want your employees to take more salary in hand, right? And minimize their taxes as much as possible. It is every organization and every HR's wish, and every individual's wish as well, that we pay as legally as less taxes as possible and take as much as possible in our hand. So it is on our onus to educate our employees, to communicate this information to our employees, that there could be a case where the old tax regime is beneficial. Guys, please go back, do your homework, then come and tell us which is the tax regime that you want to opt for. Option for tax exemption and food coupons cannot be provided by default, right? So see, there is an element of compensation planning also that comes here, right? So this is also the time where employees declare, okay, I want 1,500 rupees of food coupon, or maximum 50 rupees per meal per day, which is 2,200 of food coupon. I will take the maximum value. This is also declared typically, right? Now the question is, what happens if you are on the new tax regime and yet you're opting for food coupon? It makes no sense, because this food coupon is totally taxable under the new tax regime. It is not tax exempt. So instead, why do you want that money to go into a food cart and restrictions for it to be used only at grocery stores and stuff like that? Instead, let the money come into your bank account or your card directly, and make benefit of that. So does the option for tax exemption of food coupons also cannot be provided by default? Right now, we have been providing it by default, but moving forward, we cannot. Next, the option for tax exemption of telephone and broadband expenses, if it is being accounted under section 10 of 14, also cannot be provided by default, right? Because both the 4 and 5 will only be applicable for old tax regime people and not for new tax regime, right? Let's say if you are providing telephone and broadband expenses, but not under section 10 of 14, you don't even bring it under their compensation itself, then that's fine. Then that's a different story. You don't have to worry about it. But let's say if you are bringing it under the compensation, and then if you are giving exemption under section 10 of 14 for telephone and broadband expenses, then such exemption cannot be provided by default, because now the default is new tax regime and the default is not the old tax regime. Yes. Lavina, okay, there is a question. I'll let you know Radha is there, so Radha can always answer questions there, and we will also take up questions as soon as we finish. So, can you see the impact now? Sometimes I have to wonder, what would be a sustained impact if we are going to have both the new and the old tax regimes. Clearly, the direction moving forward is that the government wants to promote the new tax regime, and some of them say the old tax regime will go away. I don't know, frankly speaking, because typically, if you look at the tax structures of developed economies, you will have a lot of exemptions, you will have a lot of deductions based on the individual's situation, based on individual's preferences, based on individual's choices. So this can be a reason for debate, but anyway, right now let's not worry about it. We have many other things to worry about. What has also changed? See, let me tell you that this is yet to be notified. The leave encashment exemption limit has increased from 3 lakhs to 5 lakhs. It was discussed, it was proposed in the budget. It is yet to be notified. At least until yesterday, we've not seen a notification to this effect by our research. So what does this have an impact on the payroll and payroll or HR teams? So this, leave encashment exemption is available in both regimes. See, there are a lot of things that are available in both regimes. Like, for example, employers' contribution to NPS is available in both the regimes, right? It is not only for old tax regime, or and that it is not applicable for the new tax regime, nothing of that sort. It is available for both regimes. Certain perquisites are available under both regimes. Certain perquisites, not all the perquisites, certain select perquisites. Certain, gift, gift value, gift coupon until 5,000 rupees is also available under both the regimes. So there are distinct things that are available under both regimes, even gratuity, right? Gratuity exemption is also available under both the regimes. Section 1010D, which is any payment from any maturity value that comes from an insurance policy, is also available under both the regimes. So not that everything will be taxed in the new tax regime. There are distinct things that are available for both the regimes. But as we are talking about leave encashment, this is something related to the employer. Now, what will happen is, because it is now increased to 25 lakhs, right? Due to the higher exemption values, EEs would demand employers itself to provide exemption. Now, why I say this is, there is a practice that is followed in the industry where the employer doesn't want to take the risk. What is the risk? You know that leave encashment exemption is once in a lifetime exemption, right? It is upon the retirement of the employee or separation, but it is only applicable once in a lifetime. Now, the risk that the employer doesn't want to take is, what if you have claimed these exemptions earlier, and knowingly or unknowingly, you also claim it again with the current employer. So that becomes a risk to the current employer. So to avoid this risk, some employers, what they say is, no, we will not give tax exemption for leave encashment. If you want, you claim tax exemption while you are filing your tax returns, we will tax it. Right? Now, this was okay until the leave encashment exemption limit was 3 lakhs. See, the maximum tax liability, even if I consider that the leave encashment is max 3 lakhs, the maximum tax liability that the employee would suffer as would be about 90,000 rupees, 30% of 3 lakhs, 31.5% of 3 lakhs. Right, but now the stakes have increased significantly. Right, let's say the leave encashment goes up to, let's say an employee is actually eligible for a leave encashment of 7.5 lakhs. Then and there is a least of the three example. In that also there is significant higher value to be exempted. Then the employees are definitely going to come back to the employers, and they are going to demand employers itself to provide the exemption. So this may happen, but what we will have to wait and see is when it gets notified, and it is applicable from which date. Right now, it is proposed as far as our knowledge goes, but it is not notified yet. So a question to all of you. We'll discuss this question in the Q&A session, but generally, I would definitely like to leave you with this question. Will there be changes to compensation components due to tax regime changes? Right. See, Relativity itself is a payroll outsourcing company. We run payrolls for about 80,000 employees a month. We process about 80,000 pay slips a month, and we also, as a part of our giving back to the industry, we run salary restructuring workshops. All right, these salary restructuring workshops are small workshops which are conducted in a group of about 10 to 12 participants, where we welcome companies, and companies come to the workshop in an intent to restructure their salary. Now, earlier, we would not take the tax regime into consideration while planning the compensation components. Right? We would say, okay, if you don't have food coupon, and if your company is a company who can provide food coupon to the employees, then we would say that is one of the suggestions or recommendations that would come out of the salary restructuring workshop. So now the question is, now that the new tax regime is the default, what do you think? Do you think that there would be compensation changes to the compensation components due to tax regime changes? Because ultimately, if there is, over a period of time, I'm not saying today, but over a period of time, if you see that your demographics are choosing a lot more new tax regime, then you can actually have a very simple compensation structure and weed out the rest. So that's a question we'll definitely discuss it during the Q&A. Okay, so some facts about us. You definitely want to know. Many of you are new to this webinar. This webinar, by the way, happens regularly every second Wednesday of every month. 10:30 to 11:30, this webinar happens. We discuss changes to payroll, changes to compliance, and changes to taxation during this webinar. And we also give a lot of importance to Q&A. It is not that I just come, present, talk, and go away. We give a lot of importance to Q&A, and questions are answered. So it is what at least I've heard from the participants is that it is an excellent platform for getting more information, for getting legitimate information. We are 13 years and young, 153 clients and counting. We process about 1.2 million transactions a quarter. Our accuracy rates are 99.5, 16 cities, and 4.5 lakh Form 16s are issued by us. One of the things that we are very proud of is our client retention rate, 99% and so on. What do? We do payroll, we do taxation, we do compliance. In payroll, we do payroll outsourcing, we do payroll lodgement, and we do payroll audits. In compliance, we take care of PF, ESI, PT, labor laws, shops and establishments, compliance audits, everything end-to-end is taken care by us. And taxation at scale, we do PDS audits, we do PDS compliance, and also end-to-end. So these are the three pillars of relativity, and this is what we continue to do. While I now open the session for question and answers, My colleague Radha is also here to help me with questions and answers. I mean, questions as well. I want to encourage all of you to connect with us on LinkedIn. We have a bunch of videos on YouTube, like how Niveta, my colleague, was mentioning earlier. I am the presenter for the relativity knowledge series, which is a short series we started on YouTube. And we have a very extensive blog. Do subscribe to our newsletters. All of these links will come up onto your chat box. Yes. There is a question: which are the locations you do payroll and compliance? All India, all over India. Apart from that, we also do payroll and compliance for Singapore as well as for Australia. These are the three countries for which. Venkatashiva. Thank you. Okay. Kindly send us invitation to attend webinar every month. Yes. So for that, I suggest that you add us to your trusted senders. You add us to your contact list, Gopi Krishna, so that you will definitely receive our emails. How can you add us to your trusted contacts is by selecting the email that you've received recently, and there would be a button which says add to your contacts. Please do that so that you will never miss an email from us. Is uniform allowance under FBP taxable under the new regime? Okay, is uniform allowance under FBP is taxable under the new regime? Yes, it is taxable under the new regime because there is no specific exemption allowed for uniform allowance under the new tax regime. Okay, Asha has a question. Radha, do you also want to start speaking, taking up questions one by one? I'll take Asha's question. Maybe you can take Anil's question once I finish Asha's question.
Sure.
As for the new mandate, PF is taxable if it is more than 2.5 lakhs per year. Is there any way that the basic salary can be capped to max amount so that PF tax can be controlled? So, Asha, that's a very interesting question. I really appreciated bringing up on this forum. But you can't do that. The reason why you cannot do is there is another regulation which states what is an acceptable basic, right? So let's say, for example, and I'm just taking some examples. Let's say 2.5 lakhs per year, right? Let's say the basic is, if somebody gets a basic of 15 lakhs into 12% is 1.8, maybe a little more, more than 15 lakhs, maybe 20 lakhs basic, which means they should be earning about 40 lakhs. 50% of your gross salary should be your basic. This is mandated in the code of in the new wage code. It's mandated that even if you have a lesser basic, the department is going to consider 50% of your gross salary as basic. Once that happens, you can't control the provident fund contributions. So that's not possible in short. But really appreciate the context of this question. Thank you for bringing it. It's a very impactful question. Radha, you want to take Anil's question?
Yes. Hi, Anil. So actually, there is no limit for the standard deduction. So it is applicable as like old tax regime also. I mean, it is applicable for everybody, 50,000. So the same applies to new tax regime as well, 50,000 of standard deduction. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. I'm taking Shruti's question. Can you please help me understand LTA option and how to claim that for tax exemption? So LTA option cannot be, is not a tax exempt allowance if you have chosen the new tax regime. Of course, you can definitely claim it under the old tax regime. LTA can be claimed once in 2 years. It is twice. It's actually twice in a block of 4 years, right? So 2 times you can claim in a block of 4 years. Right now, I think the block is getting over or has it started rather? Is the block started or getting over? I'm not very sure.
It started from 2022.
2022 to 2026 is one block, right?
Yes. 25, 22 to 25.
22, 23, 24, 25, 25. Yeah, is one block. So twice in one block we can claim. What you can claim is only your travel tickets, right? Only your travel tickets, and that too, if let's say if you travel by air, it is recalculated for AC fare for that kilometers by train, and that is provided as exemption. No stay, no hotels, none of that is exempt for LTA. And LTA is also applicable not only to you, but to all your immediate family members who are traveling with you. So that's how you can claim LTA, Shruti. Aditya Ahuja, yes, you can ask questions, Aditya. Do you want, if you want to speak, you can, request to unmute yourself and you can definitely ask your question, or you can even post it here. Radha, you want to take the next question?
Yes, there is a question like how many times employees can switch the tax regime within financial year. Actually, there is no limit to switch the options. But as per the, if you see the best practice, usually once or twice employers will give options to employees to switch the regime, because it is actually difficult for employees to calculate the taxes in different regime frequently. But there is actually, as per the act, there is no limit to switch.
Right. There is another question, Radha. Do you want to take that? Prashant Vanahalli. Marginal relief on new tax regime at 7 lakhs taxable income. Notification released or not? Marginal relief notification has come. He's talking about 87 marginal relief.
Yeah, there is a marginal relief for this one.
Rebate under 87A, right?
Yeah, but it is yet to come. We have not got the notification yet. Prashant, we will have to wait for the notification, the official notification from CBDT. I mean, they've mentioned that there is a marginal relief available, but we are also waiting for the notification.
Sanjay says, Akash, though labor code is not yet implemented, it is better to go make basic 50% now itself rather than wait till the act is implemented. Need suggestion, definitely. Sanjay, if that's the right name that I can call you. Yes. What we have seen, because we also work with a lot of organizations, helping them align their salary structure for the new labor code, new code on wages. We have started doing that in the last financial year itself, of course, in a phased manner, because there are a lot of things that get involved, right? Sometimes the employees take home may be reduced, maybe. I'm not very certain, may be reduced and all of that. So waiting until the last moment is not at all recommended. We should definitely start doing it from now on itself. Okay, will we get recording of this session? Gunjan, I think you'll definitely get a recording of this session.
We will be sharing the recordings to all the participants.
Okay, Radha, you want to take Nivya's question?
Yes. So if we opt for new tax regime now, and I mean, switching the regime for the financial years is the question. Can I do the switch from this year and the next year I can go for old tax regime and then again come back to new tax regime? Actually, there is no penalty. You can do however it is comfortable for you, whichever is beneficial for you. If you are a salaried employee. Only for the salaried employee, it is an option that we can choose whichever we want. So you can go for whichever is beneficial to you, Nivya.
Also, I would like to invite everybody's attention that you are here to quickly, give us a short feedback. Right now, a quick poll will come onto your screen. It is the feedback poll. It will help us, make these webinars more effective. It will help us make a better utilization of your time. And it will also tell us if we can reach out to you in the near future. So, Niveta, can you pull up the questions, sales questions, as well as the feedback poll? Yes, it's
meanwhile,
it's there on your screen. Please spend a few seconds and give us the feedback. Radha, back to you.
Yeah, meanwhile, can I go with another question?
Yes.
The question is from
Sure.
Sendil Kumar. Is it necessary to restructure or change the configuration in CTC if there is a flexi pay or not? So it depends on your, there is no mandatory that you have to change the CTC structure, but based on the components that you want to introduce in the flexi benefit, it is better to reorganize your CTC components, for the benefit of the employees and for the better understanding of the employees.
Hey, thanks. Just a quick shout out to those 10% of the people who have polled, who have given us the feedback. The remaining 90%, it just takes 30 seconds. It would be very, very vital for us. Radha, back to you.
Yeah. So, Akash, can you just take up this question from Aditya? Can you please explain the concept of marginal relief in new tax regime?
So, see, when we talk about marginal, it's actually quite an elaborate discussion that we need to have. Aditya, can you leave us your email ID so that we can connect with you? Because I have to give you a working example for me to actually make sense of marginal tax relief. So just leave back your email ID and one of us will get in touch with you.
It is very similar to surcharge relief that we have if it is more than 1 crore. So the same kind of relief that they are providing for this, but it is complicated to explain without an example. So we'll come back with the example, Aditya.
Yeah. Final call for the feedback, please. Final call for the feedback. Ankita has asked a question. Do the employees have privilege that they can change the tax regime that they have previously opted for at the time of filing their tax return? Yes, they do have that option, Ankita. They can change. So, see, let's say you have declared something to the employer, and while you are filing the tax returns, you want to change it, you can definitely change. Until you file your tax returns, and that too within the due date, there is a possibility for you to change. But once the tax regime is, once the income tax returns are filed, which means you are making the declaration of your choice to the income tax department, then there is no way of how it can be changed.
Okay, so there is another question from Sumita. Is that LTA can be claimed if we are traveling by own car? So practically, if you see from the act, there is no specific information available that whether I can claim by traveling by own car. But if you see the industry best practices based on the number of kilometers that they have traveled and based on the declarations from employees, some companies are actually giving the exemptions if they traveled by own car, but not by all the companies. The company has to decide on this part. And next question is from Regina. Can the fitness reimbursement add under FBP? If yes, what is the limit? See, Regina, there is no rule that whether we can add or not about the fitness reimbursement. But majority of the companies do not have this option under FBP. Because it is the benefit that you want to provide it to the employees. Not all, not many companies have this option under FBP. So it depends on your, the decision by the company.
Yeah, we'll it's already 11:31. We'll continue to hang around for another 5-10 minutes. And then we'll continue to take questions. No problem. Need clarification. Radha, I'm taking the next one. Anil.
Yeah, I think I've answered this question. Maybe you can answer it once again. No problem.
If you need clarification on standard deduction for new tax regime, is there any ceiling limit like old up to 5 lakhs? Standard. So there is standard deduction for new tax regime also of 50,000. Right? That standard deduction is there. Apart from that standard deduction, until if your income is less than 7 lakhs, if your total income is less than 7 lakhs, there is no tax in the new tax regime. Whereas that is not the case in the old tax regime. In the old tax regime, it is only up to 5 lakhs. if we go on travel in our own vehicle with family rather than flight or train? Shruti, yeah, I think Radha answered that question. Okay. Radha has answered that question. Both translation.
So there's a question from Prashant. Not sure. I'm not able to understand that question. I'm not sure whether it is a direct message. You have got that message, Akash, Prashant.
Yes, he has actually responded to your response. If
Okay.
Prasanna, you can have telephone expense under flexi in both tax regimes, and you can provide exemption based on bill submitted by employees.
Okay. So I'll just take up this
Tax
question.
regime is
So
not
Prashant,
applicable, is what he says.
no problem. So Prashant, it is, I mean, if it is a reimbursement, you can actually claim it. But if you say it is a telephone allowance, there is no exemption available. So that is what I was trying to say, trying to answer previously.
Any thoughts on the below screenshot? The 8 must have. Okay. Can employees choose new tax regime anytime throughout the year? Yes, they can choose. Yes. Is it dependent upon which tax regime we want? Shri has asked, I don't know. Do you know why this question has come? Shri's question. Is it dependent upon us which tax regime we want?
Yes,
Yes,
you're
yes.
right, Sri. It depends upon the income and exemptions or whatever the investments that you have. Based on that, every individual has to decide which tax regime is suitable for us.
Okay, do you want to take Prasanna Nagarajan's question? It's an interesting one.
Yeah, so car lease is actually applicable for it is an FBP component, right? So it is out of your the gross salary itself is calculated after considering all this. So the car lease option is available in both tax regimes. You want to add any points to this, Akash?
No. So it's absolutely applicable. Nothing to do with the regimes because it is coming before 17 of 1.
Okay.
Is exemption like movable assets, internet allowance still valid? If yes, please let us know. So allowance, there is no allowance that is exempted in the new tax regime, right? All the allowances are taxable. No section 10, except for I think one which is section 10 or 14 of I of 1, which is a per diem allowance when we travel on behalf of the organization on official duty. That is the only thing outstation. That is the only thing that is exempted. Apart from that, none of the other exemptions are exempted. I mean, allowances are exempted unless they are mentioned. So a lot of people have asked examples with respect to marginal relief. Sorry, what?
Can you take a Prasanna's question? This medical expense reimbursement can be under flexi.
Medical expense reimbursement can be under flexi. So, medical expenses. You cannot have a medical reimbursement because that has already been taken off. And in lieu of that, only standard deduction has been given, right? So, I don't know how you can have medical expense reimbursement even now because in lieu of medical reimbursement and conveyance allowance, only standard deduction of 50,000 is given to all employees. So that's something that maybe you may want to check with your company auditors in specific to see if there is a way of how it can be made possible. Okay, wonderful, good session. Thank you. Informative session. Thank you. If an employee opted for new tax regime and car lease has been provided by the employer, please clarify whether car lease is exempted. Yeah, so it has no impact on car lease because car lease is outside of your outside of 17. I mean, outside of your gross salary. So what happens is you decide what is the compensation. Let's say the compensation is 50 lakhs, for example, and then you say, okay, he's eligible for an annual car lease payment of 15 lakhs. So only 35 lakhs is actually paid out to them, right? The 15 lakhs is actually directly paid to the car leasing company. So that has no impact here. But let's say you are paying driver's salary, you are paying, fuel exemption, you are paying those perquisites, right? 1800 until 1200 cc, so on and so forth. I don't think they can be, those will continue to be exempt under the new tax regime. Is that right, Radha? Those will not be exempt under the new tax regime, right?
Sorry, I was answering another question.
The driver's salary
Yes.
for car leased employees,
Yeah.
under perquisites, that will not be exempt.
Yes, for the new tax regime, it is not exempted.
Even the fuel, fuel and
Yes.
maintenance will not be exempt under the new tax regime.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. A lot of people have said thank you. Thank you to you too. I think we are done with the questions.
Correct.
Wonderful. So thank you very much, each and every one of you. I hope all of you who are there have participated in the feedback plus sales poll. Appreciate all of your time, and we will keep in touch. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, and it has been a wonderful 1 hour to have been spent with you. Thank you, and all the best. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.